Alright, so you know it's the end of the year and you have nothing to do, so your teacher just puts on a random movie. Most of the time these movies are absolute trash, but once in a blue moon it's actually a pretty good movie. Well, one of those fabled times came up recently and we watched The Incredibles. Personally, I've watched this movie a lot of times, but it finally gave me an opportunity to actually see that this movie is really good. Now, it's pretty well known, but I don't see it being talked about anymore, probably because it's like 19 years old or something, but still, it deserves more credit. So yeah, I just want to talk about it.
Down in Ohio, where
One of the things that immediately stood out is how much they managed to get away with putting in this movie while still getting a PG rating. Like, do you remember the first big plot point of the movie? Because if you did, you would remember it's literally about Mr. Incredible stopping a guy from killing himself, and then that guy suing him for it. That's pretty insane in a PG movie. It's not even implied, it's right there on the headline of that one newspaper. Also, another thing that's implied is that Mrs. Incredible thinks that Mr. Incredible is cheating on her. So that's pretty sus. And if anybody tried to put this in a movie now, it would get shut down in like 10 minutes. Oh, and also Syndrome's death is absolutely brutal if you actually think about it. He literally got sucked into a plane turbine. That's a pretty brutal death. Like, even Disney movies, which have a reputation for brutal deaths, get completely blown out of the water with that. He literally got blendered.
we don't make no sense.
The visuals in this movie vary a ton. In some scenes, it looks great and honestly still stands up to a lot of modern animated movies, but in others, it looks kind of like the default unshaded view panel in Blender. For the most part, there are only a few scenes that look really jarring because I feel like it's either modern or it's aged like milk, basically no in between. For example, there's this one part where Mrs. Incredible is calling someone, not sure if it's Edna or Mr. Incredible, but either way, the scene of the person she's calling looks great, but then you switch back to her scene and it obliterates your eyes. Really, there are only 2 or 3 scenes like this, so for the most part, it's fine.
Microwave on the sea.
I realize I haven't explained the plot by this point in the video, so I'll summarize it for you. A weird blonde fanboy somehow gets into the car of a superhero and gets rejected. Years later, where a superhero has been forced into hiding, the same superhero from before gets fired and then gets called to a pretty suspicious island by a woman who looks like the relative of Stewie Griffin. He goes and defeats a meatball robot and then goes back home, gets called again and this time gets obliterated by the second meatball robot, and then discovers it was a trap designed by this annoying blonde kid who is now an annoying ginger adult, which, in my opinion, is much worse. The ginger guy shoots the meatball robot in a rocket into insert big city, and then the family fights the big meatball robot, defeats it, and then the ginger kid gets stuck into a big plane turbine. The end. Cool. Now I'd like to get to the part I actually care about.
Yo, no need to flex.
So it turns out there are a lot of goofy things in this movie. Like, do you know that one sound that goes like,
Oh my back!
it's actually from this movie. Maybe you did, but I still had a heart attack when I heard it. Also, every time I hear Syndrome say Sly Dog, I literally start ascending. It's absolutely insane. But yeah, honestly, I just wanted to talk about this movie. That's about it. See you later. Hope you enjoyed. If you didn't, give me criticism in the comments. Seriously, I obviously need to improve. See ya, actually.